Welcome everyone. For those of you who were trying to log on, I apologize. Apparently there were some issues. In any case, I'm very happy if everybody is now able to get on successfully. I'm Susan Greeley, the National Director of Wellness Services at Castle Connolly Private Health Partners. And now, instead of stalling to let people log in, I'll probably jump right in. I do want to give a few reminders up front that we will be recording this webinar this evening. The recording is going to go out to everybody in the next couple days at the latest, and it will include a few slides as well. So during tonight's presentation and webinar, we highly encourage you all to submit questions in the Q&A section. That's a big part of tonight because we want it to be about how it relates to your own food and health, and really want it to be engaging. So in any case tonight, I am talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is food as a medicine, truly, and the way it relates to not just our overall health, but specifically our mental health and well-being. I'll be introducing Dr. Naidoo. I'm extremely excited to have her here talking specifically about this topic. So again, for anybody who's just logging in, welcome to tonight's SENS Wellness webinar. I'm Susan Greeley, the National Director of Wellness Services at Castle Connolly Private Health Partners. I like to tell anyone who's new to my wellness webinars that these are really meant to educate and support all of our members, to help people, to inspire and empower people to make positive lifestyle changes and develop healthy habits. So we'll start tonight by, and again, there will be the Q&A. Let me talk a little bit about my guest this evening, whom I'm very excited to have this discussion about food with. So Dr. Naidoo is the Director of Nutritional and Lifestyle Psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital up in Boston. Dr. Naidoo has been described as the world's first triple threat in the world of food and medicine. So what does that mean? She's actually a Harvard-trained psychiatrist. She's a professionally trained chef, and she is trained as a nutrition specialist. So her nexus of interests have found her she's landed in this niche of nutritional psychiatry. And I will say, I hope you come away tonight with an understanding of how foods truly can have a profound effect on your mental health and overall health and well-being. So Dr. Naidoo both founded and directs this first hospital-based nutritional psychiatry service in the United States. That's at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston. She has also served as faculty at Harvard Medical School, where she was considered Harvard's mood and food expert, and she's been featured in the Wall Street Journal. So tonight we are talking about her first book, her first publication, which came out during COVID, and great timing on launching a book, and that's why I'm very excited. So right here in my own hands, this is Your Brain on Food. So the book covers 10 general conditions of mental health, and I encourage everyone to actually, if you're interested, if it applies to you, probably you, someone you know, even related to stress. We'll talk a lot about this, stress and anxiety during COVID. And not only that, though, it really is based on food, and all science aside, understanding how we can choose mood-boosting foods and make simple recipes on a daily basis without being overwhelmed. I'd like for you to come away from tonight's webinar understanding how foods that you eat truly can help sharpen your thinking, boost your mood, and really energize your life. So with that, I'm going to bring in Dr. Naidoo and have her talk about, give some really invaluable tips and messages this evening, and actually talk about how to pull together some quick and easy recipes. So with that said, I will close my slides and we'll get to chatting. Hi, Dr. Naidoo.
Hey, Susan. Thanks so much for hosting me. This is exciting.
This is exciting. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Okay, so we have what I would say is probably a never-ending amount of topics alone in this area of food as medicine and mental health. However, I want to take a step back and really give people, without overwhelming them from the science side, however, it's so important, as you agree, to understand the gut-brain connection. And there's this term that the gut is the second brain. So let's start by having you talk about that and explain to people what that really means.
Sure. So, I based a lot of how I wrote the book on the gut-brain connection, because it turned out that when I reviewed the research on what is out there around food as medicine for mental health, that there's a significant amount of evidence. And many of the studies, not all, but several of them do actually look at the gut-brain axis. You mentioned that the gut is sometimes called the second brain, but here's why. The gut and the brain, even though they're far apart in the body, originate from the same cells when we are a little embryo. And they divide and grow, and these organs separate out and land up in different parts of our body. But the gut and brain came from the same cells and are then connected by the 10th cranial nerve, from the brainstem in our brain to our gut by the vagus nerve. So I like to call, Susan, the vagus nerve a two-way superhighway, because basically it is bidirectional chemical messages going up and down all the time. And this becomes significant because the gut is also where we are digesting our food. But other things that are also important, especially in times of COVID, are two other things that I think people should know. There's a very large part of our immune system that is located in the gut. So this is another separate medical reason to really pay attention to how we're eating, because we want to have our immune systems really primed, really in good, healthy shape and condition. And an easy way to do that is through food. But another and more important reason related to mental health is that, people call serotonin the happiness hormone. Medications like Prozac, otherwise called fluoxetine, or sertraline, otherwise called Zoloft, are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. But it turns out that more than 90% of the serotonin receptors in the body are in the gut. So this gives another important reason why how we eat and what we eat becomes important, because the receptors are also there. I think that it's just helpful for people to understand that maintaining a good health of the microbiome, which is the environment of the gut, meaning there are about 39 trillion microbes that live there. And before you think that's bad, that's actually good for us. They're there to help us. But you can eat on any given day, foods such as the ones here on display, fresh fruits, vegetables, healthy spices, good sources of fiber, or you can go to a fast food restaurant. And in that 24-hour period that you make that decision, your gut microbes start to change. Research has shown this. So you may not feel anything immediately, but if your choices continue to be fast food restaurants and unhealthy choices in general, then those microbes are going to be defeated or overcome by the bad microbes in your gut or in that microbiome. And when the bad microbes overcome the good microbes that live there together, you start to develop symptoms and you start to develop inflammation in the gut. Over time, this can lead to gut inflammation and a condition called leaky gut or intestinal permeability. But most importantly for your brain health, that gut inflammation can also really impact neuroinflammation in the brain. And when you have symptoms of neuroinflammation is when one of the ways in which you can start to experience not feeling mentally well, or not feeling mentally your strongest or healthiest. So the gut becomes a really important place that we can take care of. And one easy way is through how we eat.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Something I talk about day in and day out with many people, right? And it's just, it can be very simple though, and I think that's the main thing. We'll talk about how whole fresh foods impact your gut bacteria and your immune system. And now, who doesn't hear you when you talk about that in the day and age of COVID? And so this is something I think we need to stress a lot. So let's dive a little deeper into bacteria. Right? It's like a term when you hear bacteria or germs, it scares people, quite honestly. And then when you say we need them, our body, our microbiome is made up of how many trillions of bugs, right?
Right.
And so let's put a positive spin on it and talk about the role of good bacteria in our health and mental health versus the bad. And if you don't mind too, could you give everybody a definition of probiotic and prebiotic?
Sure. So I think that's a great point that you made, Susan, because when we hear the word bacteria or virus or microbe, we get scared. But the environment in our microbiome is really trying to encourage the microbes. And I say microbes because they're different types. It's not just bacteria, there are other things. But let's just call them bacteria or microbes for the purpose of what we're discussing today. They're there to help us, and they are not going to harm us as long as we treat them well. So, it's a relationship. In the first chapter of my book, I call it the gut-brain romance, because it's kind of like romance. Some days are not great, but for most days you want it to be great. And the way that gets impacted is the bacteria or the microbes are living there. They are there to help our immunity. They are there to reduce inflammation. They are there to say, when when I talk about leafy greens, or colorful polyphenols from really rich, different fresh vegetables. These are antioxidants, but in order to really have a good impact on our brain, they need to be digested and broken down by the bacteria. So that's one easy way to think about a good function that they do. Antioxidants are important for our brain health. Anti-inflammatory foods are important for our brain health. Why? Now, I am a psychiatrist and I focus on brain health, but many of these things will also help your general health, because you will hear, that you should eat antioxidant foods or anti-inflammatory foods, and they're good for you. This is absolutely true. It's good for the rest of your body as well. The way that I like people to think about it is, things like a quarter cup of blueberries is very rich in polyphenols and antioxidants. But in order to get an even better benefit, you need to get that digested by the microbes in your gut, so that those great substances become available to the rest of your body, especially your brain. So think about the bugs in that way, and then also realize that the days that you're not having a good or healthy day, that you then you're nurturing and taking care of the bad bugs in the gut, because they love, they love added sugars, and they love, they love fried foods, and they love lots of processed foods and junk foods with colorants and dyes and things like that. But we know processed and ultra-processed foods, start to disrupt the gut, because what they do, they start to feed the bad guys. And when they overcome the good bugs is when inflammation starts to get set up. So that's one way to think about it. Now, when we talk about pre and probiotic foods, think about it this way. Pre, think fiber. So prebiotic foods are rich in fiber that help the good bugs become nourished and healthier. So great sources are things like the allium family: garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, jicama. There are a ton of prebiotic foods that you can include in a salad, a soup, even your daily roasted vegetables, that will help those microbes thrive, right? The way to think about probiotic foods is very simple. Probiotics can often be a supplement. Some people do take a supplement, but the way that they are obtained through food is through fermented foods. And fermented foods you've seen probably in many places, but may not have realized, are things like miso paste, kimchi, which is a Korean pickle, sauerkraut, kefir, which is a soured yogurt. I always say, try to have the one that's unsweetened, so you don't take on the extra added sugars that you don't need. Plus yogurts, dairy and non-dairy yogurts now have active cultures in them. So those are really great sources of bringing back probiotics to the gut, or bringing back good bugs to the gut, because they are fermented. So it's prebiotic, think fiber to really nourish your good bugs, and fermented foods which bring back even more good bugs to your gut to help that microbiome environment.
Yeah, so I want to touch base, not that I like to focus on the negatives, but we're going to keep driving this home and show some foods how, bad foods that fuel the bad bacteria. And I really want people to understand that as well, like why the berries, why the nuts and seeds, and why eat a rainbow. And it's because we do need to displace the the foods such as sugars, you mentioned them, added sugars, fried foods, bad fats in the diet. So I like to flip that, and a lack of fiber. Instead of thinking about, what not to eat, I like to focus on what to eat. Absolutely. So, right. And I think that that's really the most important thing for people to understand so it's not overwhelming. How do you get from, eating a standard American diet to one that really is rich in all of these phytonutrients that you and I love to talk about? So I have this tagline: eat your good fats, fiber, and phytonutrients, right? Eat a rainbow of foods to fuel the good gut bacteria in simple ways. And can you speak to, and I know you touch on this in every chapter, and I want to tell people this in the book, and that's what I love about it, is which foods specifically can be harmful for certain conditions and which foods are really supportive of those conditions. Do you mind though, Uma, just really briefly talking about the role of phytonutrients in general and overall health, overall mental health? And yeah,
So,
go ahead.
thank you, Susan. So, I try to display a lot of colors here. You'll see some of my colorful squash back here, and you'll see my leafy greens up in this kind of jar. You'll also see some spices, because they also have some great substances. This is, I think there's a little bit of a glare there, but I'll come back to those later. I have a range of tomatoes and sweet peppers, bananas, citrus, and a really lovely red cabbage, because that again speaks to these bright colors. Why do we care about the colors being different? Why do we care about the biodiversity of these colors? Because all these different colors bring back, think carrots, the orange in carrots, the carotenoids are what bring back that beautiful color, but they bring back rich phytonutrients, which are good for your body and very important for your brain. The same with this humble cabbage here, the same with these sweet peppers, as well as the squash that I have back here. They all bring back healthy nutrients. Plus, when you eat a healthy whole food, and here I would say that I would also mention that frozen foods, in terms of vegetables and fruit, without sugar, sodium, syrup, or salt, or sauce, are completely okay to eat. Because if you need to make sure you get vegetables on the table for your family, for yourself, then frozen foods are perfectly fine. But I'm talking about frozen cauliflower, broccoli, vegetable medleys, and frozen things like wild blueberries or say strawberries. Perfectly fine, because they're flash frozen in the United States and they're pretty healthy to eat. And they're a good way to keep them on hand and keep them in your freezer. Always have them ready for a smoothie or for your salad, or for a side of vegetables, and perfectly fine to use. When I talk about frozen foods, I'm really that you should avoid. I'm talking about the frozen processed foods, which are your frozen dinners. And the reason that they can be frozen and last over that time is they have additives, fillers, colorants, dyes, stabilizers, and those things are not necessarily good for us in any sustained way. Coming back to the phytonutrients and the colors, what we want from these is to get the rich polyphenols and the antioxidants. And these basically work for our better brain health through multiple mechanisms in the brain. One easy way to think about it is through reducing inflammation, and antioxidants do another very important thing. They take care of these substances called radical oxygen species, which get formed through different chemical responses in the body. But the truth is, we want those ROS, these little species, to be taken care of. So it's almost like, think about a vacuum cleaner. You have it on your floor, you want it cleaned up and you want it taken out. In a similar way, that's what antioxidants do. They clean up these species and take them out of the body. So a great reason to add colorful fruits, vegetables to your diet. The other thing to remember is that the different colors bring biodiversity to your gut. So the range of colors bring back that kind of difference and different great nutrients to your gut, and therefore really feed the bugs in a good way. So these are good reasons to include these, plus the fact that there are different bacteria that actually there's certain bacteria that thrive with folate from things like kale and leafy greens. So these become super important.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I know, and we focus on, that's a simple way, the eat a rainbow, that message that I love to give, and you're showing here, because it is so visual. And there's, as I'm doing this, I'm looking down to see what's all spread out on your counter. I would love for you to show your tin of all those spices. Yes. So even though we focus so much on fruits and vegetables, and people know that, and it's important to see how simply they can eat a variety. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on building a great salad that I stress that every single day. However, let's boost up our food and nutritional value with herbs and spices. So you can speak to that. And then on the, it's hiding there, your hemp seeds. And I wanted you to specifically talk about those as well.
The hemp seeds when I talk about fiber. So that's,
okay.
I'll do it there. So I am going to show you my spice dabba, which is basically an Indian spice box, and it smells beautiful because it has all these lovely spices in them. And here are the colors of the different spices. So what I have here is turmeric, the bright yellow. I have some cloves, garlic, chili pepper, which is the chili powder with capsaicin, red chilies. I also have cardamom, the little green pods, and I have whole black pepper in here. And so generally when I cook, I have my little spice dabba ready, and I use a tiny teaspoon and add spices. Most Indian homes have this, but you can put your spices together in however you find it convenient. What I'm trying to show here really is that spices are calorie-free, salt-free, sugar-free. They are pure. If you can, buying an organic spice would probably be better. Most of the spices, including turmeric, are now available in most supermarket aisles, so you don't necessarily have to go to an ethnic store to get them. The beauty, I think, of spices is that they have so many nutrients, anti-inflammatory substances, antioxidant substances. They have those beautiful colors, and different spices can impact us in different ways. Two that hit the high notes for me are actually turmeric, and the second one is saffron, because these, in many of the different conditions, these spices hit the high notes in terms of turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, and I'll explain why in a second, really helps symptoms of depression and anxiety. And with saffron, it has been shown to significantly help depression and a few other conditions. I know that not everyone cooks with saffron. It's a super expensive spice, and you use very few strands when you cook. Think, a delicious saffron risotto, or in Indian foods, we cook a rice dish called biryani, or paella also has saffron in it. But in saffron, it might be that the spice is, you have to consume too much of the spice for the benefit, and that is an instance where you might be able to talk to your doctor about a supplement. But with turmeric, it's so easy to cook with a quarter teaspoon of turmeric with a pinch of black pepper. Why? Because a substance in black pepper called piperine activates the curcumin in turmeric. And turmeric is really this super bright yellow spice, right? And what I do with mine at home is, because I know I want the black pepper in, is whenever I refill my turmeric, I actually grind in some black pepper right in there. So, and I kind of mix it together. That way I never forget to add it. Now, if I want a little bit more pepper in whatever I'm cooking, that's completely fine. You see my peppermills in the corner over there. So I do that as just a hack to make it easier for myself, because one of the things that you learn in culinary school is to be prepared. So mise en place is that term that when you watch a cooking show, you'll see people have all the ingredients laid out. I have things a little bit, I was trying to get as many things in this as possible, but if you're preparing something, it's really great to have your ingredients laid out. And in a similar way, that just is an easy hack to make sure I always get my turmeric with my black pepper, because the black pepper activates the active ingredient in turmeric and makes it supremely and superiorly bioactive and available to your body and your brain. So it's one of those things where if you're going to have turmeric, it really is worth your while to add some black pepper. The other spices I mentioned, saffron. Then there are spices that actually help things like brain fog, fresh peppermint, some parsley, thyme, Mexican oregano actually have a substance called luteolin, which is another form of antioxidant. And it's been shown in studies to help brain fog. So if you're feeling, a little sluggish on a certain day, you're thinking you're not clearly, think about adding those to your roasted vegetables, or think about a peppermint tea, something like that, that, might brighten up your day. And, you know, I think that I would encourage you, like we've spoken about adding vegetables into your diet, adding in spices, because spices bring delicious flavor, bring a variety of foods to, you know, simple roasted vegetables can become so different with a little bit of cumin, a little bit of coriander, a touch of turmeric, or it doesn't turn it into a curry, it's just the seasonings that change it. Or you can have, you know, parsley, thyme, black pepper, and some fresh garlic for another direction. You can have Italian roasted vegetables, and you can throw in some oregano, dried or fresh, and salt and pepper, a few pieces of garlic, you know, to just change up your recipe. So a simple sheet pan with roasted veggies can be a great side dish for you and your family, and you can make a different flavor of them. You know, if you get a farmer's box, Susan and I were talking offline before we started. If you receive your farmer's box and you have a ton of veggies, think about how can you make them differently on different days to entertain yourself and your family. Change it up a little bit. So I think there's a great value to add spices to your life and to your diet, and they're really good for your brain health. The next thing I wanted to cover, Susan, is just fiber. And, you know, fiber is such a big topic, and I think that it has become so crucially important that we understand this for better gut health, because fiber does so many amazing things for those gut bugs. It provides food and it provides other functions, and fiber is easily obtained. Fiber cannot be obtained from seafood or animal protein, but you can get it from vegetables, fruit, beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, healthy whole grains, you know, and things like that. So, as well as nuts. So fiber is really something that we should be incorporating, just like we think about adding these colorful vegetables and fruit. We want to add fiber back to our diet. Now, you know, Susan, you asked me about different conditions. One of the foods that people must have heard about that hits the high notes for things like depression as well as anxiety are omega-3 fatty acids. Now, omega-3 fatty acids are very often found in fatty fish like salmon, well-sourced, say sockeye salmon, and other types of fatty fish. But if you're vegetarian or you don't consume fish or you can't consume fish, there are also some plant-based sources of omegas. And some of them are things like hemp seeds, flax seeds, sea vegetables, algae, and things like that actually are really great for you to include in your diet as well. Say you don't eat seafood. The other thing I would like to touch on is that with spices, say you're not familiar with cooking, say you're watching this and you don't cook at all and you don't spend much time in the kitchen, you know, you can easily make something. I made some chai tea earlier, and I made these quickly this evening. I actually have some chai tea flavored tea bags, and I did it that way. I didn't make them from scratch with my grandmother's recipe, which takes a little bit longer. I much prefer that. I do that on the weekends, but I wanted to show you easy hacks to do. If you can get, you know, some nice organic tea bags with the chai tea flavor, brew them, make it easier for yourself, and add in, so, you know, one of the things we wanted to talk about was golden chai. And what that is the golden color comes from turmeric. And what you do is you add in a nut milk or a milk of your choice, you heat it up, you add it to your chai tea, and you've added a little pinch of your turmeric and black pepper to your milk and heated it up. You pour it in, and if you have a milk frother, maybe you do or maybe you don't, you can even stir it, and you have a delicious golden chai, which is chai tea with the milk of your choice and turmeric with a pinch of black pepper. And it's really just a delicious and really beautiful flavored tea, if that's something that you like. So if you're not used to spices, you know, maybe throw them into a soup or a smoothie to start, make a tea with them, because that will help you get used to them. So those are just some tips to help you get started.
So with it, I think a lot of people have heard of the golden milk that
Yes.
can be made, as you said, with any plant-based milk. Just a couple of questions, Uma. Do you stir? So does the powder actually get mixed in? I've had them pre-made myself. I have not made it myself. And just to get into the habit of adding the turmeric. And so is it sweetened at all? Or is this an unsweetened beverage? And then how does it actually blend?
Yes, so I have a tip for that. Turmeric, yes, turmeric will dissolve in a milk. I like to use, say, macadamia milk,
Okay.
I prefer nut milk, so I heat it up in the microwave, or a better way, if you have the time, is to heat it up on the stove, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
If you heat it up gently on the stove and you add the powdered turmeric that I showed you from my spice box, which has the black pepper in it, and just use a little whisk and stir it and let it heat gently, it will easily dissolve. If you heat it up in the microwave, you just need to add your teaspoon of spice, which is your turmeric, a pinch of black pepper, and stir it until it dissolves. Usually that works perfectly well. My trick is also to make my tea, add my heated milk, and for those of you who have a hand blender, before you put it in your cup, if you use a little hand blender in your milk and froth it up, it actually looks and tastes like frothy milk. Not everyone has one of those frothers at home, so that's just an easy hack, something to do if you have the time. But you remember those hand blenders?
Immersion blenders?
Immersion blender is what they call, right?
One of my favorite kitchen tools. Yeah.
Exactly, immersion blender.
Yeah.
I pulled mine out, but basically the stick blender. And if you have a pot of milk or a large mug of milk, you can quickly use the immersion blender, froth it up, and pour it over your tea. So it blends really easily into a hot milk of any kind.
Nice. I like how you keep saying the hacks, and all I can think of is these simple hacks help people make it become a habit. And I think that that's what we're trying to get across, is that beautiful spice container that you have. It's inspired me. Mine are all in my cabinet. I use them daily. And I think that that's what we're trying to teach people, right? Is that it's these simple hacks can make it become a part of your daily life. And then you experiment with the flavors.
That's right.
So already, and in the Western diet, something like a golden milk or chai teas, they aren't as common. They're becoming much more popular, and I just think that they're fabulous ways to create your own versions as well. One question that's coming in, I'll go ahead and incorporate some of our questions as well, is the golden chai. So can you differentiate between chai and the golden milk? I think it's confusing. Yeah.
So here's a really funny story. So chai is tea, right? So when it's Hindi, and so if you say chai tea, you actually say tea. It's really funny. The chai tea. I did
not know that.
In the US, right? So at home, everyone has their grandmother, their mother's homemade recipe, and it's usually a blend of these different spices that's brewed gently on the stove. And then you can have it black, or you can have it with milk. You can make it in different ways. Golden refers to the turmeric that you add to the milk. So it gives that beautiful golden hue when you add it to a milk. And then when you add milk to your black tea, it really changes the color. And that's what the golden chai refers to.
Got it.
You can have the milk on its own. You don't have to add tea. If you don't drink tea, or maybe it's in the evening, and that's why I made it kind of, you can caffeine tonight, because it's I'm not going to be able to drink it. It's too late. It's going to keep me awake. So you can actually just have golden milk on its own. Very nutritious, super delicious. Say there's a nut milk that you like, or maybe you have, if you are drinking dairy milk, completely fine. Just my suggestion for you is to get a grass milk fed option, because those are usually just without the antibiotics and other things that can go into other forms of dairy. And you actually see that on the label these days. And so you can add, same thing, warm up your milk, add your turmeric, which has a pinch of black pepper, whisk it in, or use your immersion blender, blend it up, and have that as the drink of your choice. Now, if you want to sweeten it, that's entirely up to you. Over time, I have really tried to drink unsweetened tea and coffee. It's just the habit I've gotten used to. But you could use a drop of stevia, or a touch of erythritol in it, if that's something you use. I really look at sweetness from the brain science perspective, and those are the two that I found didn't have as much negative evidence. So definitely check with your doctor if there's some sweetener you shouldn't be having. I would avoid it. Or a drop of honey, or something like that. I just think that I think we're a very sweet society, and I think that the more ways that we can, there's so many hidden sugars in the food that we eat that we don't even realize, that when we are trying to employ a healthier diet, it just is easier to be careful about it.
Completely concur on that, and it's what I recommend as well, really detoxing from that need to have our coffees and teas in particular sweet, and then you appreciate the actual taste of it and do get all those polyphenols, all these.
Same thing with chocolate, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Oh yes, and we're going to get to your chocolate mousse later, which is fabulous. But in these hot beverages, there are so many different ways to be creative with it.
I'm sorry, Susan. Another hack for sweetening a beverage is cinnamon. Cinnamon is a great sweetener.
My favorite.
A sprinkle of cinnamon on your oatmeal or even on your chai, whichever it is you're having. Try it out. It's really delicious.
And that combination of the cinnamon with the turmeric I found in my oatmeal is fabulous. Because I want to bring it is, and my golden oatmeal.
Chia pudding. Chia pudding is.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Ratio is important. Chia seeds, coconut milk, and I throw in some turmeric in that because it gives it a delicious color, and it's so simple, an easy hack for making it.
Is simple. That's the point. These are simple. One question coming in is, can you add the turmeric to tea without milk? Yeah, that's what I figured.
Absolutely. Let's say you don't have milk. It'll just end up looking, it may not look that as bright yellow, but you'll see a difference in the color. It's looking kind of like a light yellow, and that's perfectly fine to do. The golden milk is just something that I think has become popular in tea shops in the US, but you can do it whichever way. My message to you is try to get the turmeric in with a pinch of black pepper, because that's good for you.
Right. And I love how you elaborate on so much of these and the why behind it. And I think that's important for people to understand why you're choosing these spices, why you're choosing these fruits and veggies, and your banana in particular, the prebiotic. All right. So before I go off on that too much, back to turmeric, which is such a popular spice, thankfully. So will my garden, this is a specific question, will Garden of Life organic turmeric, I think, inflammatory response gummy beef. Okay, so the question is, because many people do take turmeric in a supplement form, and there are, if you ask me, well, all of us, not all supplements obviously are created equally. Purity, quality, transparency on them are very important. However, this person eats a turmeric gummy, and do you think that that's as beneficial as using the spice?
I don't. And the reason that I don't is that, number one, I don't know which gummy you're taking, but generally, think about it, right? A gummy will have other things that make up that gummy. And it's really almost like a vitamin candy, right? That's the idea behind it. So if you're doing that, I would try to switch to, if you really don't want to cook with it and you don't feel you can add it to a soup, smoothie, or a chia pudding, or your oatmeal, and you just don't want to work with it, then move towards a supplement and maybe speak to your doctor about, or speak to Susan about the proper supplement, or one that we can recommend. I know, and I think to speak to your point, Susan, that we know that supplements are not FDA regulated, so you're absolutely right. They are not made equal. And my concern about the gummies that have taken off as vitamin gummies and all these different versions is that they're really other versions of candy. So yes, they might have vitamin in them, but you have to be concerned about the other ingredients that I added in, and that would be my concern.
That's absolutely correct. I tell people all the time to look at the ingredients, not just what's on the label. You're looking for that one specific ingredient, such as curcumin or turmeric. However, if the first ingredient is glucose syrup,
exactly,
don't go for that.
there are like about 200 other names for sugar. Food labels in this country. So if you have a bottle wondering what is in it, just check the ingredients, and you will be surprised.
But I will say with things such as turmeric in particular, because it's such a strong anti-inflammatory component and it helps so, it's important to get into your diet. I don't think it's an either or. So if you take a supplement and just focus on incorporating it more into your diet, right? They're not mutually, so you can do both, in other words, and get benefits. But yeah, the quality of the supplement, I think, is the most important aspect. If you,
by the way, I'm wearing my chef whites, but turmeric does stain. It stains your countertop. It stains. So when you're used to working with it,
Your
You know, be
fingernails.
careful on that because it, you know, someone has a white countertop and can stain. So, I completely agree, Susan. You have to get used to it, and you can do both. There's no harm in a supplement adding some to your smoothie.
Yes. Okay. I guess we'll stay. There's one question. Well, there's several questions I want to get to, but since we're still on milk, here's one more. I thought milk is not good for the tummy. Mild today in grocery stores is not healthy according to all. Okay. So as for chai, it is usually very sugary and also gives a tummy ache. So I guess the point is people have this so I'm going to start with that. I think what this person is thinking of is a very sugary, sweetened chai tea latte, which is not what we're talking about, quite honestly.
That's a good question, actually. Let me explain.
It is.
So when you buy a chai tea latte at a coffee shop, and let me just mention, you know, a very popular coffee shop being, because I know the blend that they use. So Starbucks, for example, you know, when you buy a coffee from Starbucks and it's just coffee, well, that's what you're getting. But to get the chai tea, they use a pre-sweetened blend. And they add it to tea, and it's something you can actually purchase, or you used to be able to purchase it. It has a lot of, I think it's sweetened with honey or something else, but it has a lot of sugar in it. So when you actually get your chai tea, it is sweet. And then you might add something else to it to sweeten it up as well. So that's not actually what we're talking about. We're talking about the way that chai was intended. You know, in India, and the way that families make it is a blend of spices that bring a beautiful, delicious flavor to black tea. And the golden milk part is just, you know, adding turmeric and spicing up, not spicing up, but really making that milk more beautiful and more nutritious for you. You can have it black as well. The chai tea blends, unfortunately, come with a lot of added ingredients. So, you know, it might be that if you find a tea shop that actually you can see the spices in the tea bag and they're blending it that way, that's a more pure form of chai. And, you know, they might say to you, how do you want to sweeten it? Then you know you're adding in something if you wish. But if not, it's just the spices and the tea.
That's right. Thank you. Okay, before I forget to ask this one, because I also made the same note, backtracking a bit to the brain fog. You said that, you rattled that off rather quickly, and I thought that that's something, there's the few foods that help combat brain fog. So that was very helpful.
Like fresh peppermint, parsley, thyme, and they contain this antioxidant called luteolin, and it's been shown to help lift brain fog. So, you know, one of the things I tried to cover in the book is, I think it's in the memory chapter, really looked at other things that people experience in this day and age of just kind of feeling foggy, feeling tired in the afternoon. So those are just easy things that you can add back to your diet in the form of spices.
Mm-hmm. And since we're on tea as well, the peppermint tea is so soothing and can replace, doesn't have to be sweet. And for people now, if you're, I'm just going to put this out there because I do a lot of coaching, trying to get away from having alcohol in the evening. And a lot of people truly, and I mean this in all sincerity, because I can tie it back to gut health and altering that. You're trying to get, like, decrease at least alcohol and sugar consumption, but you're looking for something to drink, and people are. I often suggest peppermint tea. And then,
it's very,
you know, right, if you know that it's also going to help prevent brain fog rather than make you a little foggy the next day, that's fantastic, isn't it?
If you have peppermint tea bags and you have fresh mint or fresh spearmint, you know, it just makes it even better. So
yeah, it's fantastic.
I'm big on flavor, and I think that people, when you can enjoy things and bring more things to your diet, and if you like the flavor, you're going to do more of it.
Right, you and I both, you know, there's so many people are bombarded by these sensationalized nutrition and food messages, and that's not what it's all about. And simple food. So
this is the message behind my book, which is it's some of the simple, you know, there are very simple foods around conditions, right? But it often comes down to some basic pillars that I speak about in terms of mental health, like ones we covered, Susan: fiber, prebiotics, probiotics, right? Foods. One of my hacks is eat the orange, skip the store-bought orange juice, which is, or eat the fruit, don't drink the fruit. You know, it just trying to say, you know, have the whole fruit. That's where the vitamins, fiber, nutrients.
Right. You know, one that just made me, there's a few more questions. However, there's one line in your book that jumped out at me that I loved, and it was the Goldilocks philosophy of eating, because some people will take something such as like too much of a good thing isn't necessarily good. So go ahead and you give that your Goldilocks.
You go ahead and quote it. It sounds like it's your favorite.
Oh, is it right? You want not too little and not too much. You want it to be just right, basically.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So, shall I just talk about the mousse recipe quickly?
Go. Yes, and that I have it on the slide for all. So we do have a chocolate mousse recipe. Do you want me to share that, or do you just want to talk through it? I can share the recipe. Why don't we do
One thing
that?
I would say about it is I didn't put mine together because I need my bananas to be a little bit more softer, and when they a little darker and softer, they're sweeter. And to me, that makes a difference for the chocolate mousse to be creamy, smoother, and sweet. So I usually give them a couple of days before I do it. And then it's just really simple avocado. And when I wanted to talk a little bit about cacao.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about cacao because as a baker, a funny story here, I learned to bake before I learned how to cook because there were too many cooks in my family. I grew up in a large South Asian family, and mothers, aunts, grandmothers, older cousins were cooking. So I learned how to bake, and I loved science, so I loved to measure. But you know, when you bake, you'll use Dutch processed cocoa. And the reason is that process actually lightens the flavor for baking. There's nothing wrong with the process. The only issue for brain health is that it reduces the flavonoids. So I like to suggest a more dark, raw form of cacao or cocoa powder, and one that's organic if you can. And that will actually give you the boost of what I'm trying to add to this recipe, which is the rich flavonoids from the cacao. So just a little tip to remember there.
It's a great tip. Such a simple. Okay, so see, this again will be sent out to people, but I love how simple and delicious this recipe is.
And honestly, Susan, when the bananas are sweet, you don't have to add a ton of added sugar or anything else to it. It ends up rich and creamy and very enjoyable.
So somebody's asking what brand of cacao, where to find it?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I think look for a good organic brand. Look for words like natural or organic cacao. Look at the ingredients, and it really should just say cacao on it. If it has other stuff, be wary, and you should be able to find a good brand even at your local supermarket.
I agree, and I'll say, okay, not to tell people they have to shop on Amazon. However, who doesn't these days? And you can get some really good organic cacao on Amazon.
You may know a brand off the top of your head that you use. And the reason is, I have to say, it's because I put my ingredients into glass containers in jars, so see and label. Yeah. It helps me work faster, so I frequently don't remember which brand it is. But.
Okay. You know, even that, I didn't think of that, but storing of various things, particularly nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices, that I'm just going to just trigger this in my mind. I talk to people who, if you've had something like flax seeds, they've been in your cabinet. First of all, they don't go in the cabinet, but if they've been there for a year, even the 6 months of COVID, I say throw them out and start over. So foods, you know, some of these very healthy foods, just like fruits and vegetables, they need to be eaten in a certain amount of time. Right. So I just wanted to say that as well. When you said, I love that you store them in the glass containers. So, okay, just a couple more questions because I want to be cognizant of our time this evening. Few that came through, oops, I just didn't want them to be that big, but okay. This goes way back to our probiotics and conversation. So are there foods after you've taken a course of antibiotics, are there foods that can help restore the balance in the gut?
You know, there was a study that actually showed we used to make the recommendation that when you took an antibiotic, you should be taking a probiotic, but there was a study that came out that disproves that. So what I would say is if you're looking at gut healing, which is, I think, what you're referring to, because unfortunately, when you take an antibiotic, while you need it to treat any infection you might have, it could also kill off some good bugs that are there to help you. So it's a good question, and I would probably start with how you're feeling, check in with your symptoms, check in with your doctor, and start to build in the healthy sources of fiber we talked about, the fruits and vegetables. Remember, with fruits, you want lower glycemic fruits. I like all fruits, but I like to recommend berries in terms of mental health. And then the things that bring back fiber, such as the lentils, beans, nuts, seeds, healthy whole grains. Start to almost eat in a way to build up your gut health. And starting with those will get you in the right direction, plus the healing spices. Things like the spices we spoke about also have healing properties because they're antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. That will help you as well.
Such a great point. The before and after even taking the antibiotic is really critical. Okay, so sorry.
So probably a couple more questions. And
yeah, exactly. Really, I think we're closing in on. Here's one. Can wine and beer, since they are fermented, be considered probiotic?
So, good question.
It's a good question.
It's technically, beer is technically a fermented food. I think that you have to put alcohol in the context of how you drink it, when you drink it, how much you drink. And as a psychiatrist, I know that it's important to know that things like red wine have resveratrol, and that's a super good ingredient for you, but it's in moderation. It's, occasional glass of red wine or something, a glass of dinner once in a while. If you, during the pandemic, have had a lot of wine or a lot of cocktails because of being in quarantine, you might want to think about how to change that up for you, because the effect of alcohol on our organs in the body, as well as our brain, are not necessarily good long-term. Alcohol is a depressant, so it worsens depression, or if you're not feeling great, it will ultimately, even if in the moment you feel good, it could lead to not feeling good. And alcohol drives anxiety. The other thing is that if people tend to like a cocktail, cocktails have a lot of added juices. Simple syrup is sugar, is basically 1 part sugar, 1 part water, and it has a lot of liqueurs in it. So you have added alcohols if you like a fancy cocktail. So if you're going to have a cocktail, maybe go for a cleaner one, less often, and with squeeze of an actual orange or an actual lime or an actual lemon, and a splash of, say, sparkling water in it, than any kind of juice or added stuff in it. With alcohol and beer, yes, it's fermented, but it's about the amount that you drink. And I hesitate to say, yes, beer is a fermented food, that's good for your gut, because the other impacts and the amount that a person drinks and the impact on other organs in the body, such as the liver, are more important. So it's all about context in that one. That's why I tend to refer to whole food sources when we talk about fermented foods.
Thank you. I think that's a great answer to a very relevant topic to people, is alcohol. And you want to be able to enjoy it still in a healthy way.
Exactly. And get the benefit,
Right. So we're close to wrapping up. I'm actually going to share the slides again really quickly, because we got a request to see the recipe again, Uma.
And I think you're going to send the slides out, so we'll get them.
I will send the slides. I'm sorry here if this is going slowly. So I wanted to just show that quickly again. Can you say, was there any specific, I know it's listed here, there's no order, you literally just blend the 3 ingredients, and I'm guessing you can also add things.
I tend to use a food processor because you can, I think that, for example, you may try it in a Vitamix. I haven't done that, but I just use a little food processor, and because the ingredients are pretty soft, they work well together. And if you need to thin it a little bit, if it's for some reason gets too gummy or a little bit, just add in enough milk of your choice.
Oh, I like that, adding the nut milk. I will say I am a proud owner of a Vitamix just since COVID, and it's life-altering.
You can do a ton of stuff in it, yeah. So it'll probably work in that. It depends on how much you make.
Right. That's exactly it. For smaller amounts, it's not that are necessary. So just because we're running out of time, I hope I'm not freezing here.
Nope, you're not frozen.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm like, did I freeze at the very end of this fabulous webinar? I want to tell everybody again about how great I feel your book is, and just really, it truly is an indispensable guide, and gives simple recipes that truly can help boost your thinking, your mental health. Everybody needs support in that area these days. So I want to particularly thank you, Dr. Naidoo, and for being here, and for all of our members. And as a follow-up, again, this recording will go out to everybody. The slides will be included. And if you have any questions, just reach out to me at any point for follow-up on nutrition and health coaching as well. If you're interested in reaching out to Dr. Naidoo, she's available for private consultation as well. I wanted to mention that in her practice. Any last comments?
Oh, please follow us on social. My handle
Yeah.
on Instagram, where we always sharing information, is at DRUMANAIDOO. You will see the link there, but you might enjoy that because we're always putting out fun facts. We invite guests and do live interviews with experts in the field. We try to give updated information as new research comes out. So I think you might like that.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for being here tonight. To be continued. I will be speaking with you again soon, and I think that this really was so beneficial for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. It was lovely to see you.
You too. Okay. Have a great evening, everyone, and we'll see you back soon. Bye.
Bye.